Are holiday movies bad now? Judging by this year's lineup, I'd say they could use some help.
500.
Let's go heavy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Looking strong, Nick.
You're seriously just making it worse. And I want to go home.
You can't.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. It's December, which means new holiday season movies, as well as an inclination to reach for familiar stories that have some sort of association with this time of year. Although there are new films I've watched recently that have cracked my top 10 just in time for the video I will be doing to wrap up this year.
Loved every moment. The kind of movie that makes you want to punch a cop.
Whoa.
I've also been largely underwhelmed by the onslaught of holiday-themed releases that were released back in November. That made me reflect on which films I personally associate with the holiday season and feel especially festive to revisit this time of year. Ultimately, what I decided to do is quickly review 5 new holiday films from November of this year and present some alternatives for holiday films that better deliver what I look for as a viewer. What makes a holiday film and what makes them spectacular? Typically, I associate a holiday film with either being set during this time of the year, December or perhaps even early January, extra points if there is visible snow at one point or another. Anything that ties into the general aesthetics of a cold, snowy winter. Direct mentions of actual holidays aren't entirely necessary for me to fit the bill of a holiday film, though Hollywood films do frequently reference Christmas. Emotionally, I often associate holiday films with not being overly stressful to watch. Typically, they're films that make you feel things like happy, hopeful, or safe. I asked my patrons about the topic of holiday films, specifically for the sake of showing in a video, and the 2 people who responded both named The Muppets Christmas Carol as something they like to rewatch for the holidays. They also echoed my sentiments about the emotional tone of holiday films. One user, Danielle, said, "I think I mostly look for comfort in my holiday films. Probably a bit on the nose, but I want films that are well written and acted that make me feel cozy and don't contain too much drama. There's so much great story without over-the-top conflict." And Anna said, "They make me think about my childhood, sitting on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket with a log fire burning, usually a selection box of chocolate as a treat. Sitting down as a family to watch a film was a Christmas tradition for us." You'll see that this idea of togetherness, family, and comfort are recurring throughout many of the holiday films I'm going to mention, whether they are mediocre in their execution or beloved stories I love to revisit any time of the year and not just during the holiday season. I will give a general spoiler warning for all of the movies I'm going to talk about. In order of their release dates, the first new holiday film to talk about from this year is Meet Me Next Christmas. This and 3 of the others I will be covering are Netflix originals, and a universal issue that these and many Netflix originals have is the lack of budget. They are so visibly cheap that it consistently diminishes the overall impact of what they aim to do. This is particularly astonishing when you look back at the history of Netflix and how the term Netflix original used to be an indicator of prestige. The platform built its originals on things like award show darling Orange is the New Black, The Wachowskis' Sense8, and Baz Luhrmann's The Get Down. And now, by prioritizing a quantity over quality model, things have fallen far from that. Meet Me Next Christmas stars Christina Milian, the icon who served the world the absolute bops, AM to PM and Dip It Low. She plays Layla, a woman who has a meet-cute with an extremely handsome man in an airport named James. She plays some Pentatonix music for him, and they propose that they will meet the following Christmas at the Pentatonix concert if they're both single, so then they will know it's meant to be. In the lead up to the following Christmas, she discovers that her boyfriend is cheating on her, and then she remembers the meet cute with handsome airport man James, so she wants to go to the Pentatonix concert as planned, but unfortunately, by this point the tickets are sold out. Thus, she has to go on a quest to secure a ticket and or the necessary funds to buy a ticket off of someone else. I don't want to harp on the budget issue for all of the Netflix films on this list every time we get to a new one, but make no mistake, the lack of budget is a problem for all of them. However, I will point this out for Meet Me Next Christmas specifically because the amount of product placement and product integration in this film is particularly egregious. There are multiple instances where the story will come to a grinding halt because they have to explain a product in detail. Whatever happened to just having a product visible on screen without even outright saying the name of that product? And what makes this especially aggravating is that the movie still manages to look horrendously cheap. If everything else about the movie offered this picture-perfect cinematic magic that I look for in a beloved film, I might have been willing to overlook a few extra brand names being visible on the screen. Now, this point of criticism is first and foremost directed towards the corporate higher-ups who sign the checks, or lack thereof. Make less things, focus on quality, and also stop being obtuse and refusing to sell your originals on physical media. I myself would get Sense8 and Glass Onion on physical media if they were available, but they're not. I'm outright telling you how to make more money from me personally, and if you don't want that money, that's your own lack of understanding of your audience. To offer a counterexample of what an actual budget can do for holiday movie magic, I present to you Last Holiday starring Queen Latifah. Certified cinema. Queen Latifah plays Georgia Bird, a shy woman who works in sales in a department store. When she's given a terminal diagnosis, she realizes that she has not been living her life to the fullest. There's so much she hasn't experienced, so she decides to blow all of her money with a giant treat-yourself trip to a luxury hotel in Europe. Now, she doesn't actually realize that her diagnosis isn't real. The machine that had scanned her is broken. That's the American healthcare system for you. But while she's at this resort, she ends up getting a lot of attention because she wants to try all of the food.
Well, I guess I better try them all tonight then.
Tooth. All.
Do lots of activities, and really take in as much as she is able to experience. If you didn't have a real luxury hotel as the location for you to film this film at, on location in Europe, and if you didn't have the visual of her wearing gorgeous clothing, you would not believe the story. You wouldn't be able to immerse yourself into the narrative and suspend your disbelief the way you need to just watch a film instead of being distracted the entire time by how cheap everything looks, which is what often happens nowadays when I dare to turn on a Netflix original. Unless you're an auteur with an established name in traditional Hollywood spaces, and you are simply using Netflix as a vehicle to make a passion project that the old school studios would not fund, such as Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, for example, which was excellent, Netflix consistently underfunding their originals results in the vast majority of them feeling disposable. It really is the fast fashion of the film industry. Now, Last Holiday's appeal is not just because it has a decent budget that is used effectively. There's a great deal of heart and humor to the story and characters.
The secret of life is butter.
Butter.
But for this review, I am largely focusing on one aspect per segment, with a new holiday film that doesn't deliver, and then a holiday film I regard as being worthy of the term classic. Classic in the sense that it necessitates revisiting again and again, because it holds up instead of feeling disposable.
You got tension in your neck because you keep going down on Mr. Cragen, and he's a married man. At least this poor lady trying to work it out of here.
This is a smokeless garden.
Disruption.
The next film is another Netflix holiday rom-com, Hot Frosty, starring Lacey Chabert as Kathy, a widow who runs a diner, and Dustin Milligan as Jack Snowman, a snowman who comes to life after Kathy put a scarf on him. Is the scarf magic? Was there other magic floating in the universe that decided to gift this snowman with sentience? Who can really say? But those logistics are not important. To hone in on one critique, I would say that they should have leaned into the snowman bit more than they did. Make your fantastical lead fully fantastical. Snowman jokes, puns, more situational comedy. One highlight of the fish out of water experience is when he's doing maintenance work by repairing Kathy's roof, and he's a snowman, so he is not impacted by the cold, so he is doing this work outside during a snowy winter while topless, and causes a very non-dangerous car accident where no one is seriously harmed. And it almost feels reminiscent of George of the Jungle, except they leaned much further into the concept of him being a man that grew up in a jungle raised by animals. Even him just running around with horses and gaining a lot of female attention for that was funny. And the entire rooftop bit of Hot Frosty and how it snowballs into him becoming a thirst trap maintenance man for women in the town, that was the only part where I felt like they were really embracing the concept. The rest of the snowman bits felt lukewarm. So as an alternative, I present to you Ron Howard's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It might seem unfair to compare any actor to Jim Carrey, particularly when it comes to doing comedic character work, but nonetheless, it fits the brief. I'm not going to overly simplify this into blaming Dustin Milligan for not doing more in his performance. If the script had given him more to do, if he had been directed to be more over the top, all of these different things could have theoretically helped to create a more memorable and funny lead character than what we got in this film. But there is simply no denying that the bold choices for this version of the Grinch all help it to become a truly iconic character in and out of the holiday season. It's the outlandish physical comedy, the variation in comedic bits, the full commitment to having a full bodysuit and facial prosthetics to make him look like the Grinch. You can't make your romantic lead a snowman come to life and do so little with the concept visually, narratively, comedically, that he might as well just be a guy in a small town like every other Hallmark movie.
Can you maybe try to, look like you're having fun?
The next holiday movie from this year is Red One. Now, this might be a controversial take, but part of this movie is actually good. I've seen it lambasted all over the internet, but there is a very specific part of Red One that I actually really enjoyed and would have loved to see more of and explored further. But to first introduce an overview of where this film is struggling.
Breach! Someone took Nick.
Red One only really starts to come alive when they get into their first notable action sequence, and it's when Chris Evans's character is being attacked by henchmen. Before that point, I wasn't really engaged with what was being presented narratively or character-wise. It's very evident that Red One is trying to be a general audience film that the whole family can watch. It's got a PG-13 rating, and a lot of parents are fine with bringing children under the age of 13 to PG-13 films, particularly when the PG-13 rating is coming from action. But to be honest, Red One would have probably fared better if it was leaning into being a holiday film for adults. So this is where I will introduce my alternative option, Violent Night, which is an R-rated holiday film in which David Harbour plays Santa, and arguably the coolest version of Santa I've ever seen. David Harbour's Santa starts getting into full-on fights with these bad guys that are holding a wealthy family hostage because they want to rob them during Christmas. They fully lean into the concept of R-rated violence, and it's not violence for the sake of it, but it's an action film and the stakes have to feel real. The violence is a consequence. Santa can be hurt, and he does get hurt, and there are also hints of the mythological origins of this version of Santa, which I really hope they will share more details of in a sequel. David Harbour has mentioned he's interested in Charlize Theron playing Mrs. Claus. The two of them doing action together, I am already there. Opening weekend, I am seated in the cinema. But with Red One, it's trying too hard to do too many things and ultimately waters things down for a family viewing, and I feel like they needed someone in the room to make the call to trim out the excess and really lock into the film's stronger points and keep those in the spotlight. I don't know why they're trying to pander to get a very light PG-13 rating when you've got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson talking with Santa about gains or some other Jim Bro vernacular that you know children don't care about. But in actuality, the strongest part of Red One is anything and everything to do with Krampus. There's a part of the story where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Chris Evans have to go to Krampus's castle. You don't need to know why, it's really not important.
Who's that?
Krampus. What are they doing? They're playing Krampus slop.
All you need to know is that this part of the story was by far the most immersive. And one of many reasons why it's so fantastic is that Krampus is an actor in a full bodysuit and facial prosthetics, as are many of the other people that are shown in and around his castle, playing a number of different creatures. If Red One's Krampus has one hype person, it's me. I want to share a few excerpts from this Variety article about bringing him to life, because now is the time to tell people about how good he is and why. Even if you don't want to watch all of Red One, you should watch the Krampus part. Amazon's Red One is led by Chris Evans and Dwayne Johnson, two past winners of People's Sexiest Man Alive. But one half-goat, half-heartthrob is stealing the show. Game of Thrones alum Christopher Heavue plays Krampus, Santa's surprisingly hot devilish brother. Makeup artist Joel Harlow and specialty costume designer LJ Shannon created the Krampus suit for Heavue, who flew back and forth from his native Oslo, Norway, to Los Angeles for fittings over several months. First, we made a sculpture of my whole body, and then they made suits around it. When I flex my muscles, it has reactions in the suit, he said. You've got 6 horns, a bodysuit, hands, gloves, teeth, lenses, then you have to make that design, Harlow said of making Krampus practically. Putting 6 horns on somebody's head is not as easy as just gluing them on. You have to have an underskull that supports those horns. That needs to blend seamlessly with the silicone skin, which needs to blend seamlessly with the hair pieces that go on top. Everything gets tied together with the lenses and the teeth, and then it's up to Christopher to bring it to life. That's where the charisma of Christopher comes in, Shannon said. I always love whenever I'm creating a creature. My team makes fun of me because I'm like, I want chicks to dig him. He's got to be hot. There's something about a lovable creature where you are drawn to them. Any bad guy has to be well-rounded enough that they're interesting to watch, and there's a part of you that kind of roots for them. She said, I want to make you sexy with the leather pants, Heeview added. We played with how low the waist should go. Like, what kind of butt do you want? I wanted a bigger butt, bigger butt, bigger butt. We had all these different sizes of muscles and legs. We spent a lot of time with costume fittings, but definitely the goal was to make him a hedonistic half-god. The full article is linked in the description box, but this amount of labor and the attention to detail and everything being done practically is a massive selling point for why this part of Red One stands far above the rest. If Red One had either fully committed to putting the story in this Krampus corner of the universe and leaned more into that concept, I think that there could have been a truly great film here. When you think about Van Helsing or Guillermo del Toro's many monster creature films, especially from the 2000s, there's such a distinct artistic identity and presentation. Red One feels too scattered and lacks focus. And when I compare it to something like Violent Night, there is that option to go in a more adult direction and embrace an R rating, which does open up certain opportunities when you're involving monsters and creatures. But even with a PG-13 rating, Red One could have accomplished a lot more if it had more of a clear focus. Instead, they've got a secret agency dealing with creatures, and Chris Evans' deadbeat dad arc, and Santa's buff for some reason, even though he's barely in the movie, let alone involved with the action scenes. And Dwayne's character is bland, and there's a witch who looks like a CW show character, except for the end when she's rendered in very unconvincing CGI. You could have saved yourself a lot of trouble by trimming things down and simply focusing on Krampus. Krampus was just one of many stops on this hero's journey when he should have been the main event. In summary, don't be afraid to make holiday movies for adults, use practical fantasy world building, and give your movie a clear focus and direction.
My turn! Oh my God.
The next holiday film sees us returning to the cursed world of the underfunded Netflix rom-com, The Merry Gentleman. Broadway dancer Ashley returns home after being fired from her job for the crime of being too old, and upon returning home, she learns that her parents are about to lose their venue/bar because they owe $30,000 in rent. So Ashley decides to put together a show of scantily clad male dancers to bring in customers. One of those dancers is handyman Chad Michael Murray, in what is undoubtedly his most unpleasant role I've ever seen him in. The Merry Gentleman is an abominable creation that hates women with careers. Just go ahead and drop the career and dream job you've spent your entire life working towards for a judgmental man who doesn't moisturize and you've known for all of 5 minutes. I'm sure that will work out very well for you. The only reason I logged this one at a mostly undeserved high of 2.5 stars is because Mr. Cool Rider himself, Maxwell Caulfield, is in it, and he joins in on the dance numbers. He's got more charisma than your male lead, and that's embarrassing.
Now think about it.
Anyway, even if the story wasn't unappealing in that way, in general it lacks depth. It fails to emotionally resonate in a way that would compel me to attach to it. With holiday films, it's often a tricky balance where you don't want to overly distress your audience, but you also need them to emotionally connect enough that you reach their heart and forge that connection, so then they will feel incentivized to keep coming back to that film during every holiday season thereafter. So as an alternative to The Merry Gentleman, I present to you Last Christmas. You want emotional depth? This gives you emotional depth. Emma Thompson plays Emilia Clarke's mother in this film, and she was also a co-writer for the screenplay. Basically, the studio reached out to her and said, you know that Wham song, Last Christmas? What if we use that song as a launching pad to make a Christmas film? And Emma Thompson came up with this wonderful story about Kate, that's Emilia Clarke's character, whose life is in a disastrous state as she finds herself grappling with the aftermath of a traumatic experience romance, and she meets this extremely handsome man, Tom, who brings a bit of whimsy and romance back into her life. And he's also very good at emotional labor. There's an extra dimension of post-Brexit condemnation of British xenophobia, as Kate's parents are immigrants, and if all of that wasn't enough to hook you, Michelle Yeoh is in this film as Kate's boss.
Hey, you're early. You are never early. What are you up to?
Emilia Clarke acts the hell out of this movie, and I have no doubt Last Christmas will continue to hook more people into adding it to their holiday rotation as they discover it or have it recommended to them.
I think just to be a human being is hard, really hard.
You seem to manage all right.
And the final new holiday film for this year is Our Little Secret. This is by far the least egregious of what's been released this year. Lindsay Lohan always knows what to deliver for a whimsical rom-com. That's why she's managed to release 3 of them in 2 years, in which she delivers solid performances consistently. Lindsay Lohan plays Avery, a woman who goes to her boyfriend's family home for Christmas and discovers that her boyfriend's sister is dating Avery's ex-boyfriend Logan, played by Ian Harding. Avery and Logan were childhood sweethearts, and things ended in a mess. Avery really wants to win her boyfriend's family over and thinks it would ultimately be too awkward for all of them to know about her and Logan's history, so the two of them decide to keep it as Our Little Secret. It's a paper-thin premise, absolutely, but ultimately Our Little Secret still manages to succeed more than the others because everyone acts it well, they have fun with the material. Kristen Chenoweth is the mother of Avery's boyfriend, and of course, she's hamming it up exactly as you would hope that she would. There's bickering, hijinks, and again, it's largely about bringing the fun and whimsy to the audience. Now, it doesn't do quite enough to be the first thing I'm going to reach for when looking for a rom-com or a holiday movie, but when it's put up against the other 2024 holiday releases I have watched for this video, it undoubtedly understands and fulfills its assignment better than the others did. Being that I don't have as many specific gripes with this one, other than the usual Netflix give your originals more of a budget point, which I already covered for Meet Me Next Christmas, I don't have as neat of a segue into the final holiday film I would like to recommend, so I will simply say you should all watch or rewatch The Holiday.
I can't believe that you have had sex with the woman staying in my house!
He told you that?
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
It's one of my favorites. It was a favorite over on Patreon as well, and deservedly so. There isn't as much of a direct reference to the holiday season as some of these other films, but there is definitely more of that magical wintry feeling for the portions of the story that are set in England, where people are able to be surrounded by snow and the general aesthetics of what people think of for this time of the year. A cozy fireplace, scarves, loungewear, and Mr. Brightside. This is an ultimate comfort watch. Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet both have these incredible, emotionally layered stories. Cameron Diaz's character Amanda is emotionally stunted because of losing her parents when she was younger, so it's difficult for her to fully let someone in, emotionally. And Kate Winslet's character Iris struggles with self-worth because this horrible creep from her work, Jasper, has been playing with her emotions for years. If Jasper has one hater, it's me.
I wish you could just accept knowing how confused I am about all this.
And seeing both of them just get to fly away and experience new things and meet new people in another country, oh my gosh, this movie has everything. Romance, comedy, banter, friendship, Miles singing in Blockbuster. That scene lives in my head rent-free.
Are you embarrassed by this game I've started to play? Okay.
It's really aggravating when film snobs treat rom-coms as a lesser genre. It often feels intertwined with sexism, considering how romance and romantic storytelling in general tends to skew towards a more female audience. But in general, it feels like there's this disavowal of earnest emotions and sentimentality, which I would say are things you're more likely to see not only in rom-coms, but also holiday films. Considering that I've chosen Last Christmas, which was released in 2019, and Violent Night, which was released in 2022, I don't think that holiday films have completely lost their way or spiraled into just overwhelmingly being bad now. There are new holiday gems still being released, and if you're struggling to find them, well, hopefully I and others who create coverage of films will be able to point you in the direction of something that you will deem worth watching.